Hello. We're live. Having the laptop closer is a lot better.
I agree.
All right. Ready?
Yep.
Ready to be clear and concise?
I am.
Be even-keeled?
Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Souls podcast. This is actually part 2 of our 12 universal laws. So if you have not listened to that first part, please go do that first. It's just going to make everything make a lot more sense as we're talking today.
Yeah, so we went through the first 4, and now we're going to go into the next 4.
And then we'll have one more part. So
Yeah.
It's going to be broken up into 3 parts. Be much easier to digest that way, I think.
It's fascinating, though. All of these, we're recording this in just the span of a couple days, just because it can be overwhelming to talk about all these things at once. But it's just crazy how each one of these laws really does affect the way we live. And I think everyone listening to this and applying these to their lives, you can't not have a positive effect after listening to this. So
yeah, it's like a guidebook. I'm like, why the fuck did we not learn this in school?
Oh, you're right.
We should have literally been learning about this in elementary school in a very simplistic way, because it's all really important. And I understand some of it's, woo-woo or whatever, but for the most part, most of it is very logical.
Yeah.
I think that was what I was most surprised about is I think we talked a little bit in the last episode about how spirituality is sometimes so believe and dream, but this is all very tangible, very much based in logic, much more structured than I would have expected.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, these things, why do we not learn these things in school? This should be a whole class on its own.
Yeah. Imagine, because we're just now, in the last few years, I feel like a lot of this has become more clear to us, but just reading through it, I'm like, man, if I would have known this years ago, that would have saved me a lot of lessons, probably.
I know. Or just been able to flow through lessons so much more gracefully, because as we'll go over today and next week, it's all of these make everything make sense. So anytime that you felt alone or you felt stuck, it's all a part of the divine plan. And if you knew about this stuff, you would be able to just chill through it rather than freak out or panic or
fight it
or make mistakes. And it's yeah, geez, why don't we? There's 12 of them. We have 12 years of school. Why do we not master a law? And wow, we should start our own schooling system.
I was literally thinking about that before we started. I was like, what if we had our own school? And I was like, well, that's kind of basically what this podcast is. It's school, but optional free school.
It's so true.
So welcome to class, everybody.
That's how it feels.
I hope you have your notebooks out. You got your pencils ready. Yeah.
Chapter 2.
Yeah, chapter 2.
Chapter 2. All right, so we're picking up with law number 5, which is the law of cause and effect. So this is just the basic idea that every action has a reaction. Karma is the most popular example of this law. It's what you put out into the world, you will then receive it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have heard the term, what goes around comes around. Each one has these sayings that I feel we've heard throughout our lives, but this is just diving in a little bit deeper into those things. But yeah, I think one of the big things that we talked about in the last episode is we all have the tendency to have moments where we get stuck in this victimhood mindset. And this is another example where it's literally as simple as cause leads to effect. And we are the ones driving the car here. So you really have to take radical responsibility for your life and understand that the actions that you are taking, whether they're coming from a conscious or a subconscious place, they are having an effect on your life right now. So by realizing that and taking a look at the patterns that you're stuck in, you can begin to make some major change.
Yeah, so if you're unhappy with the state of your life, or if you feel you don't like the way people are treating you, it's not always the case, but a lot of the time, take a look at how you're treating people. Take a look at how you're showing up to life, because your actions create ripples that will come back to you at some point. You don't know when. It's like a boomerang. You send it out into the world and it's going to come right back. And that's a part of this is you don't know when it doesn't have to be immediate. You may have done something like a couple years ago and you're just now seeing the repercussions of that of your action, or you're maybe learning that lesson finally after doing this thing over and over and over again and you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, it's time." So rather than like passively walking through life and just kind of taking it as it hits you, you can be an active participant like you said, like you're the driver in your own life. So take a look at your actions, reflect on how you treat people, maybe how people are treating you, and from there you can like reflect on how you want to make some positive changes towards that.
Yeah, again, this is about taking responsibility for your life. So start aligning your thoughts and your actions with the results you're seeking to obtain. We're going to get into law of attraction in a little bit, and it's the same thing. It's like you can't just expect things to come out of nowhere. Like there has to be that initial action, that initial thought, that initial something. Otherwise, nothing is ever going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And a great example of this is just like if you want to be loved, if you want to be loved, well, you have to be loved. So, but if you want to be loved, you have to give love.
Mhm.
Like you can't just expect people to pour all this love onto you if you are not reciprocating that back. Like we
Mhm.
said, it goes back to the law of vibration. You need to be meeting that person or that thing or that emotion where they're at. So if you're wanting love, you have to give love. If
Mhm.
you want abundance, you need to share generously. You can't be selfish. You can't hold on to things and be thinking in a scarcity mindset. You have to be thinking in an abundant mindset. So it's pretty straightforward. It's
Mhm.
like, I feel like we really overcomplicate life and we make it very, like, we get very egocentric and like make it about us and like, why aren't things happening for me? And it's like, well, you probably should check yourself. Like, how are
Mhm.
you showing up to life? Are you open to receiving things right now? Or are you just like being entitled and demanding and actually creating a blockage for things to reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think the first step in this is just becoming aware of your thoughts, your actions, being aware of the cause and effect on every level of your life. I know for us, we've been making an effort to be more active and eat healthier. And I will notice a cause and effect if I went on a run and I ate healthy that day. The next day, I'll wake up and be like, oh, I feel this, this, and this. On the other hand, I'm really bad about going to bed on time. And so a lot of times I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be like, ugh, I am so tired. I don't know why. Like, why am I so tired? It's like probably because you fucking went to bed at 1 a.m.
I
last night.
know.
And, so it's like even in my own life, I'm having to really look at these things. It's like you notice a difference and you notice when you make that better choice, you almost always feel better.
Yeah.
So, this goes along with bigger things that you may be manifesting, but it also is in like those small everyday things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to make this shift. You really have to break a pattern, which is uncomfortable because we all love routine. Like I think it's just a part of human nature is
Hmm.
we feel really comfortable and we thrive in routine. So what routine have you set up for yourself? Because the more out of balance or, unhealthy that routine is, it's going to be even more uncomfortable to break. So if you have
Hmm.
multiple things you want to shift in your life, maybe start with one thing. You don't need to start with
Yeah.
your bedtime, your eating habits, and movement, and reading more, and whatever it is. It's like start with one thing
Yeah.
because it can get really overwhelming. So, whatever that thing is, just start with it. And then eventually it'll feel better and you'll be like, oh, I want to do that thing because I
Yeah.
know what the outcome is going to be.
And then once it's a part of your routine, it's so much easier. And so you don't have to put as much mental effort into it. And then you can, focus your energy back on those other things. Okay, I started reading more. Now I read, a couple times a week and that feels natural. Okay, now I'm going to focus on my bedtime or I'm going to
Mhm.
focus on my diet or whatever.
We sound like babies.
Literally, like the most simple things, like that's what I think about it. Like those things affect our mood, like
Yeah,
how we feel, like so much, when you really break it down. But yeah, did I feed myself today? Being a human is hard.
I know. I know. Literally go back to just infancy, and it's like, did I eat enough? Did I sleep enough?
Yeah. Am I
Am I
comfortable?
comfortable? Am I getting enough love?
Literally, but all of those things add up.
Mhm.
And then when you are, that's going to raise your vibration. Again, going back to the law of vibration. And then you're going to be able to take on so much more. You're going to be able to raise your vibration from there and match other things. So it's like you kind of have to start at like the building blocks.
Totally.
Like with the chakras, we start with the base chakra. It's like the most simplistic, and you can't go anywhere until you build those foundational blocks.
Like I was saying, I feel like we really overcomplicate life. Like anytime life feels out of whack, or I was talking to my cousin just about like shit going on in her family, and it's like, okay, things may be feeling a little chaotic right now, but we all know how to take care of ourselves. And once you do that, once you do those basic foundational things, everything just starts to like flow a lot more simply, and life becomes a lot lighter and easier. And even if chaotic things do arise, you're able to handle it. So, like we said, cause and effect, how you are showing up to the world will then affect you. So, awareness is key here, being able to observe your own actions and thoughts and then change them if you are having an outcome that you don't desire. So if things aren't going the way you want, you need to take a moment, take a pause, ask yourself, what do I have control over in my life right now that I know is a part of what's going on that I don't like in my life? And then from there, you need to just, again, like we said, maybe it's just start with one thing.
Yeah.
Make a subtle shift.
And it can be a mindset. It doesn't even have to be like an action thing. It can be like, oh, I'm just going to notice my thoughts, or I'm going to think a little bit more positively, or I'm going to be more empathetic. It can be any of these things that you are noticing or is having, a negative effect on your life. And yeah, that might just start with, you could write it down like, oh, these are the things. You could work backwards. Like, these are the things in my life that aren't working. So what did I do to get there? Or what can I do to change that outcome?
Yeah. And intuitively you'll know.
Yeah.
Instead of asking, like, why me? Why does this keep happening to me? Maybe pause and ask, like, how did I contribute to this thing happening? Okay, maybe what do I have to learn from this thing? If this thing is outside of your, capacity and you actually didn't do anything here, it's like, okay, what can I learn from this? And then also, how can I avoid this from happening in the future? What do I have control over? And maybe that's setting boundaries. Maybe that's, shifting a lifestyle. Whatever it needs to be for you, it's time to take responsibility.
Yeah. The reality is we can't control external situations or people. So at the end of the day, all we can control is ourselves. So yeah, by focusing on that, things outside of you may not change, but once you are changed, like there's so much power in that. And you can either, get out of the situation you're in, or maybe it's just a matter of it's something you can't get out of, just shifting your mindset around it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's all you really have control over. But by controlling that, so much can happen.
Yeah. Your external will change.
Yeah.
By aligning your thoughts and your actions with the results that you're seeking to obtain, like your reality will shift. It has to. And we'll get into that later. I think that's next episode. That's another law.
Yeah.
The law of rhythm.
Yeah. So many good ones.
So many good ones. All right. Number 6 is the law of compensation.
And this is basically an extension of the law and cause and effect. Like all of these.
These are literally also connected.
Yeah. And some of them are even more connected, where it's like, I feel like we're just kind of talking about the same thing, but they're each framed a little bit differently to give you a different perspective, I feel like. So they're all helpful. But again, it's like you get what you give.
Yeah. This one has to do a lot with the physical realm. Like you can think about relationships, wanting abundance and opportunities in your life. This is all about you being compensated based on what you give to the world.
Yeah, this is holding trust that you'll be compensated for your work as long as you're open to receiving it in any different way that the universe may deliver it. Just because you're putting in, let's say, a lot of time with your friends and your relationships, you may get that back by a job or another opportunity. Like it's not always going to be like
it's not going to be monetary compensation. I feel like that's where my brain goes. It's like
if
compensation.
If you work 4 hours, you get this much,
money.
X amount of money back. It's not necessarily going to be that.
Yeah. It could be any kind of anything. Like you said, it could be in relationships. It can be in opportunities. But a lot of this is less to do with, this is more just like the idea that, we will be blessed based on the good deeds that we do out in the
Mhm.
world. So it's a lot about like physically, like how are you helping other people? How
Mhm.
are you showing up to help the collective? This goes back to the collective and people as a whole. Um, and I think this goes back to purpose too. It's like really showing up and sharing what makes you special with the world and how are you contributing positively to other people's lives. You know, we all know what it feels like, or maybe you don't, but you're lucky. But if you've worked at a job or done something that really doesn't light you up and you keep showing up every day and you're like, this feels like a waste of my time. But the thing is that we don't realize it's a waste of everyone's time because the world needs you to be doing something different that you're just not stepping into yet.
Mhm.
And once you do that, you will be compensated for your basically, I don't want to say good behavior, but like for helping out
Well, and
people.
showing up as, like, the fullest version of yourself, right? Because,
Mhm.
again, we're showing up the way we're supposed to, we're gonna have a higher vibration, we're gonna affect the people around us, like, it's all super connected. But yeah, like you said, it includes all the contributions, that you give to the world and all of your gifts, and it can be love and joy and, all of those things that we give to the world and to other people.
Yeah.
But you have to take action in order to receive those rewards, whatever they may be. And it's less about focusing on, oh, if I do this, I'm going to get this. It's not
Mhm.
about focusing on that end result. It's about focusing on the process and enjoying the process and wanting to give back.
Yeah. If you are seeking something, anything in your life, you have to contribute towards that thing or that goal that you're trying to achieve. You can't just it comes back to the entitlement of life where we're like, "Well, why me? Why isn't it happening yet?" And it's like, okay, what have you done to get there?
Mhm.
Nothing? Okay, well, how about you start with like maybe just like aligning your energy properly. And the same thing, the things that we want out of life feel good. Like you said, joy, happiness, love, positive relationships, opportunities, abundance. But we don't realize that you have to put in effort. It's really interesting when you like again when you sit down with all of these laws and you think about the way society functions. And like all I keep going back to is entitlement.
Mhm.
We all feel very entitled and kind of have poor behavior. And it's kind of like I don't get why you think you deserve that thing when this is the way you're behaving.
Yeah.
So this really takes like taking again, we just keep saying it, take responsibility for your own life. And if you're expecting a certain outcome, you need to reflect on how you are showing up and then maybe start shifting the way you're showing up to the world a little bit, you know?
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, and in the most simplistic form of this, like the input that you put in is directly correlated to the output that you'll receive.
Mm,
Again, so logical, which is so funny because that's not normally something you would think, but it is so incredibly important.
yeah. Be generous as much as you can. This doesn't mean like overreach or I don't know what's the word. Be overly generous to the point where you're putting yourself in harm's way, like
Mhm.
in any
Like be
capacity.
realistic about what you have the ability to give.
Yeah. And do that as much as you can. But at the same time, and when you start doing that, when you're giving, 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 another part of this is like you have to be willing to be compensated. You need to be
Mhm.
receiving with open arms and be super gracious
Yeah.
and be thankful and grateful and all of those things. Because a lot of the times, I feel like people kind of get turned off and it makes them uncomfortable when
Mhm.
someone's trying to compensate them, even if it's just kind words. And you can be like, oh, that compliment really made me feel uncomfortable. It's like,
Yeah.
sit with that and think about why that is.
Because you're not allowing that like flow of energy to happen.
Yeah.
Because so I know for me, I love giving gifts. It brings me a lot of joy to give people gifts. But it's interesting because I'm really uncomfortable receiving gifts sometimes, and or even like compliments. I'll be like, oh, like no, that's okay. Like you don't have to do that. Like, and you're literally taking something away from that other person when you don't allow yourself to receive it because it makes them feel good.
They
Like
want to be
if
giving it
I
to
gave
you.
someone a gift that I was really excited about, and they're like, no, that's okay. I'd be like, oh, well, like now I don't feel good anymore. So it's like
Yeah.
allow that exchange of energy to flow and don't block that. And if you are blocking something as simple as a compliment or something, or gift, like chances are you're blocking a lot of the bigger opportunities that the universe is bringing your way because you are not open to them.
Yeah. And take a moment to think about why do I feel so uncomfortable with receiving?
Hmm.
Like we said, the universe will show up in different ways to compensate you for who you are as a person. Just you are worthy of everything just by you being.
Mhm.
And I think we feel the need to prove our worthiness a lot of the time. And maybe we don't feel worthy of a compliment or of people helping us. And we feel like, oh, I have to do it all on my own. And the universe is like banging its metaphorical head on a wall, like, hello, I'm trying to help you. I
Yeah.
brought in this person into your life that can give you this thing, and they want to be doing that. Or I brought in this person to help make you feel a certain way, and they want to be doing that, and you are rejecting it. Like, why
Yeah.
are you doing that? So, like you said, don't block yourself from that symbiotic energy that's trying to, it's benefiting both sides. And it goes back to the law of oneness. It's like both people who are experiencing a situation and sharing a certain emotion, like they both feel it,
Mhm.
you know? It's
Yeah.
like if they're wanting to share with you and you're receiving, you both feel elated. I'm pretty sure, I don't know where I've heard it, but basically, like when you are gift giving, especially if, giving gifts is one of your love languages, usually the person who's giving the gift is even more excited than the person receiving because they're just
I
like,
believe it.
oh my God, oh my God, they're gonna
They're
love
gonna
this.
love
They're
it.
gonna
They're
love
gonna be so
this.
happy. No, totally. It's so funny.
So yeah, practice. And I know it's hard for some people, and I often like, the people that like are constantly apologizing, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like, "Oh no, you don't have to do that." "Oh no, 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 like don't do that. You don't have to do that." It's like, stop it. Like
Mhm.
they want to. And if
Yeah.
you can energetically feel like you are being a burden, then that's one thing. That's self-awareness and realizing, "Oh, okay, maybe I am asking too much of this other person."
Mhm.
But if they are like wholeheartedly willing and want to help you,
Yeah.
accept it.
Yeah.
Don't block yourself from this,
Yeah.
abundance.
Feel gratitude in that moment instead of, yeah, guilt or whatever lower vibrational feeling that may be coming up.
Yeah. How held and supported you are, and just marvel at that and be like, wow, the
Yeah.
universe really does have my back, you know?
And you're never going to call in abundance if you can't practice the art of receiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to
Truly.
happen. Yeah.
All right. Number 7.
This is the big one, you
Da, da, da,
guys.
da! The law of attraction. So this is obviously the most popular law. This is the idea that just like attracts like. This is like, I, it's interesting because I feel like so many people will just latch onto this law, and I didn't even realize how many with the 12 laws, how they all work. So
You can't have law of attraction on its own. There's just too much missing.
yeah, and I
You
think
have to have them all.
that's why people don't manifest as quickly or the things that they want to be manifesting, because they're attached to this one law and they don't realize that there's so many other things that you need to take into account.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're all intertwined and they're all important and essential because yeah, again, you're not going to be able to get fully where you want to go unless you can understand how the other laws work together.
Yeah.
But going back to the law of vibration, which we talked about last episode, we know that everything has a unique vibration. And the law of attraction says that vibrations with the same frequency are drawn towards one another. Again, we talked about magnets. Think of like, shoo, like goes to like. The magnets that are meant to be together and are vibrating at the same frequency are going to be drawn together.
Yeah. You apply this law by wholeheartedly believing that what you are manifesting will happen.
Mm-hmm.
You get what you focus on. It's like, so how are you thinking about that thing? And I often, when it comes to this, I practice the excitement of what it's going to feel like once I have that thing, but practicing that feeling now. And I know we talked about this yesterday, or I guess it'd be last week for you guys, as well as your language. So making sure that you are excited for when these things are happening, you are practicing what it's going to feel like when these things happen. Because when you are, what was the example we used? Instead of saying "I'm excited," we said,
well, a lot of people will also say like, "I can't wait for." And the universe is like, "Oh, you can wait."
Yeah.
So the thing would be like, "Yeah, I'm excited for this thing. I will have this thing," instead of like, "Oh, well, maybe. Oh, hopefully one day." Yeah, being really clear about your language and being really clear that you want it soon.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is you could be like, "Oh, well, whenever it happens in the future, probably not for a while, then you push it back. It's like, oh, okay, then you don't want it right now.
Yeah. It's
So,
wanting
yeah.
it is not enough. You need to embody the frequency of this goal or your
Yeah.
desire, whatever it is. You need to, and embodiment is such a big practice and part of manifesting. Again, it's that wanting feeling. And I know we talk about this too, or we have before. It's that feeling of being thirsty. You're like, oh, I'm so thirsty. I'm so thirsty. I want it. I'm so thirsty. I can't wait. I'm feeling really kind of like antsy,
Yeah.
rather than just being like, that feeling when you've taken like a gulp of water and you're like I'm chilling and
Yeah.
I have my water right here. And then,
I can have it whenever I want. I don't
yeah.
have to worry about it.
And
Yeah.
that's the energy that will attract things into your life a lot faster. Like Danielle said, even when you just have faith, something will happen and you're like, it'll happen when it happens. I don't think we realize how direct we can be with our energy as far as like, okay, I want it to like, not that, again, not being entitled with it, but just knowing your worth and knowing that you can manifest literally anything you want. So just expecting that if I'm showing up with this energy, this thing is going to meet me.
Hmm.
And there is no timeline. I don't have to wait.
Yeah. We recently read a book that has so many amazing little nuggets of wisdom. But one of the things that really resonated with me, just specifically talking about abundance or money. So I think that's really easy to get into that mode of like, oh, I want money, I need money, and being really having that desperate energy. But how would you show up to, your job, whatever you're working on, to work towards abundance? How would you show up every single day if you knew that there was a key to a warehouse with all the money you could ever need, and you have been promised that if you show up in 2 months, you will get that key? Like it's a guaranteed thing. It's not like, oh, maybe, or like hopefully. Like it's guaranteed. Like you don't have it in your possession yet, but it is guaranteed to happen. How would you show up every day? And that to me just like really helps with the idea of embodiment. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to put any energy into how is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Like it's already happened. You don't have it yet, but it's like you don't even have to worry about it because it's already done.
Yeah. And this is why everything's so intertwined, because I think a lot like that is so important. It is so important to just be able to channel that energy of embodiment of just like, again, like you said, knowing it's going to happen and just chilling and like not getting stressed out about it and anxious, because that creates energetic blocks. But then it's time to take inspired action after that. And, say you have the keys to the warehouse, but you have to get to the warehouse. It's like, oh shit. Okay, well, I better start like going on my journey to get there. I know it's there and I know I'm going to get it, but I can't just sit here in my starting point without getting there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you got to get up and start walking, follow that GPS system
Yeah.
to where the warehouse is. And that GPS system is your intuition. That will lead you and help you take the proper action steps to get to the warehouse full of money.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest disconnect, or one of the biggest disconnects with law of attraction, is just stopping at the first step. And the first step is just the feeling of it, and like you said, getting excited, being like, "Oh, this is going to happen!" Like dreaming, "What do I want?" And you don't go to the next step. You don't embody it. You don't show up like, "Oh, it's already here." You're just like, "Oh, well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen." But what else are you doing to actually make that thing happen?
Yeah. Again, it's the wanting for something outside of yourself without realizing that you have the power within to make those things happen. And a part of that stuff that needs to happen within you is the embodiment. Change how you feel on the inside, and things will start coming to you and start matching with you on the outside within your reality. You are the magnet. So whatever you're trying to attract in life, like Danielle was saying with the law of vibration, you need to be at the frequency of those things. So if you're calling in abundance, you better be having an abundant frequency and energy to you, not being in a scarcity mindset. That's the opposite of abundance. If you're calling in love, you better show up as love every single day. Because when you're in the state of victimhood or scarcity of any kind, it's like, oh, it's so unfortunate and it sucks to watch someone go through that or to be in victimhood, because all they want is a savior outside of themselves to validate that what they're going through is like, and it is valid. All emotions are valid, but it's just the difference of, are you going to sit there and wallow in your pity, or are you going to feel your emotion? And then, as long as you need to feel it, to a healthy amount. And then from there, move on to like, what can I do about this next?
Mhm. And manifesting goes both ways. You can manifest the things that you want, and you can manifest the things that you don't want, but you're subconsciously focused on. So
Mhm.
that's the other thing to remember. Like it works both ways. You could be manifesting situations that you don't want because you're subconsciously focused on those things. Like, oh, I really don't want this to happen ever, ever. And every day you worry about it and you think about it. You're probably going to call that into your life. Another quote from the book I was talking about is worrying is praying for the stuff that you don't want. And
Mhm.
that really resonated with me. There's no point to get caught up in these thoughts that you don't want to happen because the more you focus on them, the more you're calling them in.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds kind of scary because you're like, oh no, I'm going to call in all these things that I don't want. But all you have to do is have the awareness that you can change those thoughts. And when they come up, be like, oh no, we're just going to shift our thoughts. We're going to move them into a more positive direction. And that's it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Those are the lessons, like these, that's when life becomes so interactive because you realize, oh shit, something didn't go my way. Fuck, I have to do this thing that's been scaring me. It's like, oh, this is where the lesson lies. And that is, life is all about lessons.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people think, and I do, I think we all have different purposes for our existence. Some people's purpose is here to just like be a happy little soul and bounce around. And some other people have more lessons to learn. And that I don't know the rhyme or reason or why that is, but when you do have hardship or something going on in your life that doesn't feel good, this is the point of growth. This is where you get to learn and change your own life. And that's super empowering.
Mm-hmm.
So feel what you want, lean into those feelings of all the things that you desire. And like I said, just get excited for it. That's like
Mm-hmm.
the most easy way to apply this law.
Like you already have it. It's just not in your hand quite yet.
Yeah.
It's already happened. You just have to wait for it to get to you. So you don't have to worry about how it's going to happen, what it's going to look like. You just have to show up with that inspired action and know that it's on its way to you.
Yeah. And this takes practice. If you feel frustration coming up because maybe that thing hasn't gotten here yet, and you're like, I know this happens for Danielle and I, you're like, okay, I've been showing up, universe. Like, I'm waiting for the thing, that thing that I want and I feel deserving of and worthy of, but it's not quite here yet. Okay. Like I was saying, this is the moment to apply, like, what lesson am I here to learn? And I think a lot of the times it's the act of shifting the frustration to love. So how can I feel gratitude for this moment? What am I needing to learn here more? And a lot of the times it's just patience.
Yeah. And another thing, if you can't find gratitude in the situation you're already in, chances are if you do call in that thing you want, you're not going to be grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing, understanding that one of the levels of frequency you have to be at in order to attract things is gratitude. Because why should you get the things that you want if you don't even appreciate what you already have?
Yeah, you have to take inventory for your life and ownership of your life, and look at the current circumstance you're in and what you've manifested. I'm sure there's something in your life you've manifested that you're extremely proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that, whether it was conscious or subconscious. And that goes for any part of your life, the good or the bad. You have manifested your situation consciously or subconsciously. And, this, the only person or the only people that I feel this does not apply to is children, people being born into this world who don't have control of their circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start being able to make decisions for yourself and choosing for yourself and feeling into what's right, this is where you are consciously or subconsciously creating your reality.
Yeah.
So, ask yourself, is this the life that you want? Or are there some things that need to change? And then from there, I would hope that consciously you take those actions to start attracting in the things that you want. And that's why all of these laws are so connected. Because, like we said, going through the first four, and now we're going through the next four, and then next week we'll go through the next four. It's like once you kind of practice these and get all of these aligned, like you said, if we learned about all this stuff in school, like, what lives would we all be living? You know? That would be absolutely insane.
But I also believe in divine timing, and I
Mhm.
believe that if you're listening to this right now, there's a reason for it, and it's you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you're supposed to be listening to this and starting to understand all of this right now.
Yeah. And maybe we're the generation that teaches this to the next generation.
Mhm.
Maybe they're the ones, it's like that's just what evolution is as a species. It's like these are ancient teachings, which is so profound, and like I feel so honored to be sharing these because it's like I feel like they're forgotten. And so we get to bring them up again, we get to talk about them, and then you get to apply them to your life, and then maybe you share them with someone else in your life. Maybe you know someone or you're thinking of someone who could really benefit from this knowledge. It's like it's just so human of us to now share and, you know, spread this as much as we can,
Mhm.
because who know yeah, like you said, but that's the beauty in the divine timing is you don't need to rush. You don't need to become anxious with this. Like you can just like lean back and trust that it's all happening at the
Mhm.
pace and time that it should be.
Exactly.
So, when it comes to the law of attraction, just slowly start to shift your awareness to your daily personal energy, the way you react to situations, and your belief towards things. Be brutally honest and ask yourself how you can start to better align with the things that you do want. And then a lot of the times, I like to use the mantra, this or something better. So, if you're waiting for something to happen or you're wanting something to happen, just know that, like Danielle said, it's the warehouse full of cash. Like it's gonna be there. You're gonna get the keys. It's gonna happen. No matter what you want, it's gonna happen. And you kind of feel delusional when you start practicing this. You're kind of like, I feel a little crazy because
You don't have the proof yet to show people, be like, see, I did
and
it.
society isn't set up to believe in yourself. It's
Mhm.
like we base everything off logic completely and only, and we don't apply these metaphysical spiritual practices. But like life, like I was saying in the first episode, life is just a spiritual experience.
Mhm.
So why can't we apply these things and practice and see how much our mind can actually change our reality? So if I start thinking about something and showing up to the world as if it's going to happen, and if it does happen, and there's been many things in my life that have happened that I dreamed of, and I'm like, okay, this is proof that other things can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things to do, just a really simple manifestation exercise that's really fun. I do a good amount of driving, and if I'm on a long road trip, I'll put on like a song that just makes me feel really high vibe, feel really good, and I will talk to myself as if I was in that place of I had all the things that I want.
Mhm.
And I'll put on like a mix for like, 20, 30 minutes, however long you want to do it. Because for me, it's just fun. So it's like I'll do it for, as long as I want to. And I'll just talk about, oh, I need to go do this, this, and this today. Like it feels like silly or like delusional, but it's also really fun. But it's really just putting you in that embodiment of like, this is the person I'm turning into, and this is the energy I carry. This is how I show up. This is what my day to day looks like. Like have as much fun with that as you want. Um, but yeah, that's just an easy way that I like to
Yeah, the
practice it.
visualization
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
it's really fun, and I think it's like necessary. I think if you're a dreamer of any kind, or creative, if you like tap into your creativity, I think it's a lot easier to kind of just allow your brain and your mind to wander into these thoughts, and like the more you can be so honest with your soul's blueprint of what you want out of life and not hold back, like the bigger your manifestations will be. So don't feel like, oh, that's too big or like that's too much. Like it's not. I think I think you came here to do extraordinary things, and it's up to you to make those things happen. And that
Hmm.
can feel like a lot of pressure, and that can feel like a lot to take on, but again, we live in this world that does not set us up to follow our passions and to follow the things that we love. If you are lucky enough to do something that you love, like that is beautiful. But I think a lot of the times we are attracting things into our lives that we think we should be doing, quote unquote, rather
Mhm.
than like actually attracting the things into our lives that we really, really want on like a soul blueprint level.
Yeah. When I think about dreaming, because I think naturally it comes easy to both of us, but I know it doesn't for everyone. Like if you have a hard time dreaming big, like think about like the dreams you have when you're a child. I feel like children do not hold back. Like you're like, what do you want to do with your life? And they're like, they will rattle off all these things. And it doesn't matter how I want to be an astronaut, I want to go do this. And you're never going to tell that child like, oh, well, you know how hard it is to become an astronaut, So allow yourself to dream like you're a child and be the adult that's like, wow, to yourself, like, that's so cool. Like that, you
Mhm.
could totally do that. Like, I can't wait to see that instead of shutting it down and being like, well, it's not really possible. So let's not even go there.
Yeah, comfort that inner child. All right. Good luck with the law of attraction. Let us know. Yeah, I mean, like I said,
That's a big one.
all of these apply to law of attraction. And you know what I've also kind of realizing is there is no law of manifestation because I kind of was expecting that. But I think the 12 universal laws are the blueprint on how to manifest.
I agree.
So, moving on, law number 8 is the law of transmutation. So, this is the idea of transmutating energy.
hmm
And we know that we are all energy and everything is energy. So, you have the
Right.
ability to change that.
Yeah. And, energy is always in motion, it's always changing forms. It never is created, it's never destroyed, it's always there. So it's always ebbing and flowing and changing. And I think by understanding this, we can begin to implement this into our own lives, and understanding like nothing is permanent. Nothing is ever the way it is forever. Um, it's always moving and you always have the power to change it. So when things are really not going well for you in your life and you're really unhappy, just understand that feeling in that situation is not permanent and it will always change. But on the
Mhm.
other side of things, when things are really good, instead of focusing on, oh, well, this is not going to be forever, just stay really present and appreciate that moment because it also will not last.
Also, in the really good moments, don't think that it's gonna stay forever. Don't think,
Mhm.
well, like, oh, I figured it out. This is life
I'm
now.
happy now.
And then you can kind of become like passive and just comfortable, and you're just like, la 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 la. Like, this is my life. It's so great. It's like, no, it's still requiring you to be super present with your life and adoring your life and the things that are going on in your life even more to the next level because you should be feeling so grateful that you have been blessed with this opportunity. This law also reminds us that, we don't need to be leaning into fear as much as we do. Fear and anxiety and being like upset and afraid of whatever's going on in your life. Because, like Danielle said, it's going to change. This
It's all
law,
temporary.
yeah, this law constantly reminds me of the mantra, change is the only constant. It's the only for sure thing in life is that things are going to change.
hmm
So when you are in those low vibrational states or feeling stagnant and feeling stuck, like take a deep breath and know that this is a part of the cycle of things. This is a part of your story. This is necessary for you to rebirth into the next version of who you are. And that energy is just naturally going to change. Now, when you apply this law, you realize that you have control over how that energy changes and how quickly it changes. So you can almost become excited. I know that sounds so weird when you're in those low vibrational states because you realize, oh, I have a say in this as well.
And it's only going to get better from there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking of like a particular situation, if you are feeling really low vibrational, feeling really yeah, again, like the energy is stuck, the energy is just not where it should be, like understanding you have the power to shift it. And maybe at first you're just able to shift it from, oh, this is really, really bad, or this is really uncomfortable, to like kind of more neutral. You're like, this is whatever. And then you can maybe even go a step further after you get there and shift it into that more positive or optimistic space. It might take a little bit of time to get there. And I think the more you practice this, the easier it is when those feelings arise to be able to shift them and transmute them into something positive. Like, I don't think that happens overnight. But again, it's just the practice of doing this and understanding, like, oh, I can change this. This doesn't have to be my reality, but also understanding that that's just like a part of life.
Yeah, I think what you just said is great. Knowing that you don't have to shift from negative to positive immediately. Like, if anything, just try and find neutrality at 1st. Try like being okay. It doesn't mean you have to. And I think that's where toxic positivity comes in, is when someone's in a low vibrational state and they're like, you're fine. You're going to be fine. Everything's fine.
Just think positive.
Everything's great. It's like, that is the last thing you want to hear. But maybe the thing that you need to hear is that, like, you're okay. You're gonna, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're okay. Everything you're feeling is valid. Everything you're going through is valid. This is hard. And then from there, you can find that neutral place. And then if you choose to want to shift into a higher vibrational state, which can feel like the positivity, that's why it is so polarizing. And that's why people use the term toxic positivity, is because it feels toxic to you. It feels so polar opposite to what you're feeling. You feel offended that this person's even speaking in the way they are speaking, because you're not there yet. And that's fine, because we're all on our own path. We all are on our own journey. We all have our own life experiences. And shit in life can be hard. It can be fucking hard. Life is not meant to be easy. And that's why, for me personally, it really bothers me when people pretend that life is just easy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think with all of these laws, it helps us and allows us to master these situations and flow through life a little bit more gracefully. But it doesn't mean you're not going to be hit with real life shit. Like,
and it doesn't mean don't feel those feelings when they come up either.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot.
Yeah. Every emotion is valid. Everything you feel is super valid. It's just a matter of, are you going to feel those things and get stuck in them and then create like this pity party energy and victimize yourself? Because life is all about choice, and you can choose to stay in that for as long as you want. And until you realize it's up to you to get out of it, like, and I know how it feels when you're in it and you just want someone to save you and you just want someone to help. And I think it's great when people do help, but there's a point when you need to take ownership for your own life and choose to transmute your own energy. And that's so empowering once you get to that place. Like you said, like when you hit rock bottom, the only place you can go is up from there. You know what I mean? Unless you tap out of this life and just show up into your next life, which, I know death makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's like, it's true. It's like, this life is so sacred. You incarnating as the person that you are is so sacred and important. And you have control over how this version of you, this incarnation, shows up to the world. So what does your soul blueprint tell you that it wants to do and how it wants to be? These are important things to tap into.
Yeah. And I think another way to think of energy, if you're having a hard time wrapping your mind around like the transmutation or the shifting of energy, like think about water, right? Water is it you can never get rid of it. It just is. However, water can transition into an ice cube. It can turn into steam. It can be a cloud. It can be rain. Like, there's all these different forms of it, but at the end of the day, it's water, right? So same thing with energy. Like, it's always shifting and changing. And thinking about that analogy in like real life, like thoughts become emotions, and then emotions become behaviors, and then behaviors become results. So just a simple energy can go from like thought to like reality to results to an actual tangible thing. So I don't know if that helps as far as thinking about how if you aren't aware of how the energy is shifting, it can like literally turn into like an actual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we've been saying, you can have control over making these positive things and things that you want to manifest, or and again, this is the lesson. You can manifest the things you don't want, because the lesson in all of this is you have control. You have control. Oh, something's happening that you don't want. You have control. And it's just like, fuck, I get it. It's like exhausting. And you're like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to keep doing this.
Mhm.
And it's like, that is what life is, though. You're
Yeah.
here to exist and to manifest and create your life that you want. And this planet, it's crazy when you think about it. Like the amount of things that happen just like within Mother Nature that creates challenges. And like think about a video game when you're like, oh no, like when you're doing Mario Kart and like a banana split, like a banana peels like in the middle of the road, and you're like, ah, like, you know, either you can swerve and do it gracefully, or you're gonna hit it and you're gonna spin out for a second, then you gotta get back on the track and keep going. You know what I mean? And this, like you said, this will take time. You know, this is literally like thoughts that are happening in your brain. And when it comes to like the physical level, our brains have neural pathways in them. And that's basically the thought patterns that our brains choose to take. So you need to practice and making new dominant ways of thinking. And you're going to be literally creating new pathways within your brain. And at first, your brain's going to want to jump into the deeper grooves that it's already created for itself. So maybe you immediately go into thinking in a fearful or negative way. That's when you have to actively create the new neural pathway, say, no, 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 we're going down this path. The path is not as like, you know, forged. And I have the imagery of like you walking through a forest with a machete and you're just like hacking away at all the stuff. And you're like, okay, I got to create a new path because maybe the path that you have right now is super clear, but it's not serving you.
Taking you to the right place.
Yeah, I know with me.
It's taking you to a dead end.
Yeah, with anxiety, it's like, yes, there are moments when anxiety just naturally happens. But if you've gone through anything traumatic before and you have like PTSD, that's where this comes from. It's like you've had an experience that has created a reaction that your body is familiar with. It takes a lot of effort, and you know, maybe you need outsource help, like go to therapy or taking medication to help you create new neural pathways. So again, like with all of these other laws, this takes effort. You know, you
practice.
This is like you become like a wizard. You're literally changing energy.
Yeah.
It's like we're at Hogwarts.
Welcome to Hogwarts.
Welcome to Hogwarts. All right, well, do we have anything else to say on this one, the law of transmutation?
I think I said everything I wanted to say about it.
Yeah. Did we say that where energy flows, attention goes?
Oh yeah, we used to have a print of that and that we sold. That has always resonated with me. But it's so true. What you focus on will become something, whether good or bad.
Yep, you're activating reality to manifest your own thoughts. Like our thoughts literally penetrate physical space and time. Like we think our thoughts are so separate from reality, and we think like, oh, I can hold them in my brain, and no one needs to know about them. They're not going to
leak out anywhere.
They're not going to affect anything. But that's when it comes down to the law of vibration. Like it's literally making our bodies vibrate at a certain level, and that's why you don't want to hold on to traumas in your body. You want to transmute them. And like I was saying last week, you want to show them light. You want to shine light on these things so it can dissipate and be released from your body. And sometimes you need assistance with that. And that's why, you know, mentors or healers or doctors even are great resources if it's gotten to that level. But know that you are your own healer and you have the ability to transmute this energy. You know, I'm looking at a book right now that I'm reading about quantum healing. And it's fascinating. And it's just like how much we don't realize we have the ability to change the energy that's going on within our body. And I think as years go on, and I think, you know, like we've been saying, these episodes and these conversations are so timely because we really are starting to open up to realize like we have control over our reality. We have control over our body. We have control over all of these things. It's just a matter of, are you practicing it? Are you actually applying it? And so
do you even hold the awareness in the first place of the power that you hold?
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing this.
And I think that's such a big one. It's just kind of marveling and sitting at and being like, whoa, I literally have the power to change my reality, to change my life, to change my circumstances. This is crazy. and also really exciting. So I hope you've gotten something out of this week's episode.
Do we want to do a little blurb of each one? Just kind of wrap them up a little bit?
Yeah, let's go back.
Okay.
Hit them from the top.
All right. So we talked about the law of cause and effect. All actions have a reaction. Think about karma. Think about, what was the analogy you used? The
boomerang.
So if you're putting out good, you're going to get a good boomerang back. If you're putting out a bad boomerang, you're going to get a bad boomerang
in the
back.
face.
Yeah.
Ouchie wah. All right, number 6 is the law of compensation. This is the idea that you will be compensated based on what you are giving to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7 is the law of attraction. Like we said, the most popular one, like attracts like.
Mm-hmm.
Think of magnets. Think of, you get what you focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 8 is the law of transmutation. This is the idea that you can transmute or change the energy that you are feeling.
Energy is always in motion. It's always changing. It's always ebbing. It's always flowing. And your thoughts determine your reality.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to end with this quote. I forgot to share it. So when it comes to the idea of transmuting energy, this is by Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Ooh, I like that.
Let's end it there.
All right. Thank you for tuning in this week. Like we said, we have one more episode coming at you next week. It'll be the last part. We'll do those last 4. Thank you for sticking around if you come this far.
Thanks for coming to class today. We love ya.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
1%. Plug it in.
Oh, 1%.